This has been so helpful having a conversation with you three experts on depression. So I've got another question for you. What are the triggers for depression? Andrew, your thoughts?
Surprisingly, I had an experience where I learned something about myself, and that was that my body or gluten had changed. Something changed, that there was some sort of change in reaction to my body to gluten. And that was a big trigger for me. Brain fog that lasts for 3 to 4 weeks,
Wow.
mood irritability, instability. And the worst part about it was that I had no idea what was causing it.
Right.
I thought I had a mood disorder. It wasn't until
Wow.
I actually fasted and I actually started to feel better.
Yeah.
So for me, food was a big trigger.
Wow.
I think sometimes we've been talking about stress, and I think lifestyle sometimes can be a big trigger
Right.
where we've just been going and going and going, and
Yeah.
we're not aware of the things that really cause us to feel discouraged
Yeah.
and depleted, and
And depleted.
unresolved grief, unresolved trauma,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things that we're not even consciously aware of that have happened
Yeah.
to us before.
Yeah.
They really do inform how we move forward in our lives and our relationships.
Yeah.
So I think having an awareness of those things and a
Yes.
good sense of who we are and how we think,
Yeah.
that's really, really important as well.
Oh, it's really good. That word unresolved, bringing things into the open is the pathway to healing, right? Harrison, your response to that?
I agree with Andrew. Like unresolved issues can get the mind to start becoming very negative, like Mary was saying earlier on. And negativity do really trigger depression when we start thinking less of ourselves, our confidence levels start dropping. Even sometimes it may be genetically related, high stress from work. Right now with finances, there's so many different, parents struggling with parenting right now, having the kids at home. That's another big trigger that can also cause depression. I find like unhealthy eating, as Andrew was saying, also is a big one. But, a lot of these, usually, with some of my clients, I explain to them that the brain is like a filing cabinet. And it collects all this information, the good, the bad, and the ugly in life. And as we getting older, for some of us, these negative cards pop up in the surface that are very toxic. And as we start pondering it, we may have flashbacks or nightmares from past traumas, for example, abuse. It also triggers depression, and people start feeling very low and feeling very terrible about themselves. And so it's getting the mind to reshift, reconditioning the mind, restructuring our thinking is going to help, move us into another level of coping.
That is so helpful. Our mind is like a filing cabinet, and that's why we need help from, professionals, but we also need community and people around where we're, sharing and going on a journey together to sort through these things. Okay, we're always focused on hope, and we know that the Bible and our faith in God brings us hope. So what is a biblical view of depression, and how should Christians respond to it? Mary, your thoughts?
Well, can I first start off by saying that I think that science is biblical in how God has designed our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. So I think if we start with that context, we can look at science without fear and know that it's also biblical, good science.
That's great. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you look at the results, the World Health Organization does these surveys around depression, and they have found that depression is like the number 2 disability worldwide, just after cardiovascular disease. So, and the other thing they found was that there's no differences for people who are in a religious community, going to church, following Jesus, than in the secular world.
Wow.
So mental health issues are very much an issue that's real. And, there's also research that shows that there are tangible physiological changes that happens in a person's body.
Right.
So to just simplify it by saying it's sin and we just need to pray our way through it, or go to the church, read your Bible more, it simplifies it, and it actually creates shame for people who suffer from depression. So I think the biblical response is that we are to embrace people who suffer from depression with grace and love. Because ultimately, what we have found is that the solution, and you're going to hear us say this again and again, is connection, it's relationships. And depression is one of those things that people naturally draw away from those connections. So if the church, if the Christian community can actually embrace people who are suffering from mental illness and provide them that grace, my goodness, that is such a huge part of the solution for healing.
Oh, thank you for that, Mary. Andrew, what's your thoughts?
Certainly, I can remember that period I was talking about before. It actually lasted for about 18 months before I figured out what was happening for me and happening to me and inside of me. And one of the thoughts and beliefs that I had was that I was alone and that I'm not going to be able to come out of this. I'm not going to be able to, support my family. So it was terrible. And, so there's so much grace that can be found in a loving, supportive community. And it's also important that we let go of the stigma that we hold on ourselves and the judgment on ourselves. Because, after the fact, when I came out of it, so many people were like, well, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Right? Sometimes we hold on to that shame ourselves with an expectation that I'm supposed to be able to do this. I'm alone in this, when that is not the truth. Right? Not only is God with us, but he has placed people around us and will place people around us that will walk with us, that will literally sit with us. I had someone tell me about friends that would come and knock on their door and open their door and bring them food and sit with them. And that was what helped people get through. So I want to encourage people to remember that even though a thought might say that you are alone and you have to do this on your own, not every thought that we have is true. Right? The word encourages us to remember that hope in God. We are not alone. God, it's Christmas. He came into the world to be with us and sends his spirit to be with us. So we are not alone.
Well, it was just Christmas. We've just been reminded we're in a new year and we know that God is with us. Okay, really, really quick. One practical step that people can take towards wholeness. You've mentioned a few. Mary, go.
Reach out for help.
Okay, reach out for help.
Let people know that you're struggling. Reach out for prayer.
Good. Harrison.
Healthy eating. I think that's very important to reshift our eating and start looking at healthy eating.
Oh, good point. And Andrew?
I would say continue to pray, but specifically pray the scriptures, pray the words that God says. Think the thoughts about yourself and about your life that he says.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. This was so helpful. Well, up next, you'll see an incredible story of how God healed Amy from bipolar disorder. Thanks so much, you guys. You've just enriched us so much today.